Hi, Mark here from the Tangibound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangibound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangibound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangiboundNetwork.com and see if Tangibound Network is right for you.
Sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. And life sucks all of the time, so stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
We're not doctors, therapists, trained professionals of any kind, so if you feel you do need help, please reach out and get the help you need. We have a whole list of things on our files page over on Facebook at facebook.com/crazylifepodcast, and or just search on the internet for the suicide prevention hotline number, or go to NAMI.org or whatever resource you can find. But just please reach out for help if you need it. If you feel as though you're going to harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. And try not to be alone. Also, if you feel that way and you realize that you're writing a note or making plans of how you would do, like harm yourself or others, definitely reach out. That's a huge red flag. And lastly, please do not replace the idea of therapy with listening to this show. Again, if you need help, please reach out and get the help that you need, or contact us. We can try to help you find the help that you need.
Welcome to the Crazy Life, everyone. My name is Jen, and I am your hostess for the evening. And with me tonight is Brian and Henno. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Howdy.
Howdy how.
Howdy how.
So how are you guys doing? And I guess who we're going to start with? I guess it'll be Henno, right?
Yep. Yeah, I wonder.
Yeah, I wonder. How are you, Henno? What's going on?
Great. I'm hot. Hot in the hot tub.
Too hot.
I actually worked outside today. Yeah, too hot. Step back, kiss himself. You gotta do one of those Lafayette's from, what was that thing you used to do, that little back lean thing?
Yeah.
From, I'm forgetting the show name. True Blood.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That cool little, like,
you know, it's funny. I can't think about the like James Brown thing without just picturing Eddie Murphy on Saturday Night Live. It's just
you're just done.
Yeah.
Yep. I was thinking the other day, but I wear Ote jeans because days Ote.
Oh man.
Yeah, I was actually out doing some ditch digging at work today.
Oh boy, not for yourself.
It wasn't very hot. Yeah, no, it wasn't 6 feet under.
Right.
But it was like 80 something today at work. But I don't typically work for that amount of time outdoors. I'm usually kind of a mixture. And if I am outdoors, I'm usually not doing the labor part of it.
Mm.
And so, yeah, but it was kind of nice, and I just took lots of breaks, and when I was done with work, I'm like, I am done. I'm looking forward to being home. But I didn't go to the gym yesterday or today, so I was like, this will be my workout for the next couple of days. Do some work. Yep. Because I had a great vacation in Eugene.
Nice.
And I did exactly what I said I was going to do, which was a whole lot of nada. It was awesome.
Sweet.
The one thing is I wanted to, Sharon's brother lives about 20 miles south, and I sent him a message saying, hey, I'll be in town till Saturday. I won't be renting a car, so if you come up into town, he said, maybe Thursday or Friday. And then he called, I don't know how many times, and every single time, I didn't have my phone on me, or it was just somewhere else, and I was not staring at it. I was, it was really great. I finally apologized. I'm like, hey, I've just been kind of doing stuff, and I really haven't, been really connected to it or caring about it, which was perfect. It was just, I was having a good time. So
nice.
That's exactly what you sound like you needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was, and just, I still, I still get up early, but not as early as I would. Yeah. But it's still part of my thing, but there were afternoon naps and, hanging out and eating breakfast somewhere and, went and saw some, oh my goodness, I went and saw the horror movie Hereditary. Oh, I'm not a big horror movie person at all. The extent of my horror movie interest was when I was high school age and earlier, that kind of stuff. But it was like, okay, this looks good. Good actors, well-known actors, and I was like, all right, topic kind of interesting, and it's kind of starts with it's a family thing, and there's you got that just family dysfunction vibe, and then it kind of becomes psychological thriller, and then it kind of becomes supernatural thriller ghost movie that ends in blood and gore, and it's the good news about it though is there were times in the movie where it was just woo, the hair just stood up on my arms, but the best part was at the end I was actually laughing because it just got ridiculous, which is what I like. I don't want to be going home or wherever I'm at afraid of all of a sudden the dark, I got, weirded out. So at the end this is one point where I just started laughing in the theater, and other people then followed behind me just because, it was great. But I would, I actually recommend it. It's, a lot of those tropes get used over and over again, and they are used, but it's he combined a whole bunch of them all in one, and like I said, familiar faces, actors that you've seen, and it was kind of fun. That was my little do something different. But my win for the weekend was something that I'm very grateful for this podcast and everything I've learned here about mental health, because Kit likes to say she's got a broken brain, and they're trying to fix it.
Yeah.
She's working with a med counselor. She sees a therapist regularly that she loves, and they're working on it. And it's not easy. And they had to do a med change last week. And because I was coming into town, she's like, "No, I'm gonna go back on it just for the next week, just so I'm not going through major withdrawals with you." And so she has, whatever you want to call it, episodes or triggers, and she has a reaction to them. And I've never seen it before. Mm. And I got to experience it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't ever happen from anything. It tends to be something rather mundane. And it was just an accident. It was a physical thing. And all of a sudden it was there was, here's this thing that happens. And I asked, "Are you okay?" And it was okay, and I got up and I said one more time, but at this point I realized that she was grabbing things, she grabbed her cigarettes, she grabbed this, that, to go, she was going to go outside. And she's in the middle of this thing, and there's nothing I can do about it except allow it to happen, because that's really what has to happen.
Yeah.
It's her process.
Yeah.
And so and I can't fix it. I don't need to fix it. I haven't been asked to fix it. So I grabbed my book and I went back to reading. And I waited until she came back in, and we hung out. And it was like, and, you know, she was obviously concerned, you know, because she really didn't want me to see that. But I was like, you know, I was forewarned. I knew, and I was just happy that I didn't feel the need to take this on or make it better or anything like that, and to allow someone to go through what they need to do to get through something.
Yeah. And you didn't make it worse by trying to make it better. You know?
Exactly.
You know, like when you don't feel good and the people are you okay? Are you okay? And you're like, you know, like, you know, like, I feel okay, but no, you know. Like,
it reminded me of, like, exes that I had years ago that, you know, that had whatever they were going through and just handling it differently. And I was just very grateful for that. That was just automatic to me. And I did not I felt like I was actually being in compassion. I was in that place. And that was a great, you know, by doing nothing, I was doing something.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was it just made me, it was just a gratitude thing. It's not like, you know, oh, check out how cool I am. No, I'm just grateful that I've learned these things. And that I can be what somebody needs me to be in a moment.
Yeah.
And it felt really good. And, yeah.
Well, like you said, too... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jen.
Right. It is a gift you can give somebody to allow them time to work on themselves, take care of themselves first before taking care of you. Because that's what a lot of it comes down to, is when people, they want to help you, but in reality, all they're doing is slowing you down on your self-care because you're having to explain, or you're having to take them, or you're having to, you know, bring them up to speed, all of this stuff. Versus like, no, right now I have to focus on me. I've got to get me right. And giving me the space, or giving them the space, depending on whatever, but I can only speak for me, but giving me the space to take that breath, to get myself centered, to bring myself back together is probably the best thing you could possibly ever do for me, because I can focus 100% on me, and I don't have to worry about you or what you're thinking, what you're doing, how's this making you feel. All of that is out of the equation, because you're taking care of you, so I can take care of me, and then when we come back together, then we can get up to speed and help take care of each other. So it's really, that's the best thing you could possibly have done.
Well, I think the key is that you started with basically asking, how can I help, or, you know, what can I do, kind of a thing. And if somebody basically tells you at that point nothing, or leave me alone, or whatever it is, it's like I said earlier, you know, a lot of people don't listen, and because they want to help, you know, and you can't fault somebody for wanting to help, but like Jen was just saying, that then you've got to, like, no, I'm fine, you know, and you're already irritated probably, so you're gonna be more likely to snap at somebody, and you don't want to, and it's, you know, so but the key is you asked, or you made it known that you were available, you know, or
exactly,
what have you.
There was no communicating at that point.
Yeah,
I mean, there was none.
Right,
and it didn't. The thing about it didn't shock me at all. I just went, okay, I know what's going on, and I know what that's like. You know, now I know because I've been learning.
Yeah,
and it was really, you know, it was one of those things where I never thought of myself as somebody that could be around people that struggled in whatever ways, because I felt like I couldn't. They would just frustrate me, or blah blah blah. Because I'm honestly going with my past. I've been frustrated by people in the past, and they typically are loved ones and things like that. And I was not patient, and I was not compassionate with them, and I didn't try to understand what they were going through. All I thought about was myself all the time, how this was affecting me, how it might be, you know, and that's the guy that I have really worked hard on. I don't want to be that person anymore.
Right.
However, you don't really know if you've changed until you have an opportunity to experience those things again.
Yep. True enough.
And be in those similar situations. And so it was like, okay, you know, I feel good about that. It didn't ruin our weekend.
Right.
You know, of course there's always guilt and things like that when someone exposes themselves. So, you know, it's a raw moment.
Yeah.
it was a pure reaction moment.
Yeah, and like you were saying, like her being worried about, like not wanting you to see that or whatever. It's like, because that's how we are. We don't want people to see our, quote, flaws. But at the same time, it makes things so much easier. Exactly, because now it's done. It's over with. It's kind of like the first time you fart in front of somebody in a relationship. Once it's there, you're like, well,
That's one of the reasons why I do that. It's like this is somebody that I want as my friend, because the first time we hung out, she did exactly that. It's over, and I was like, all right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've gotten that out of the way.
Yeah, right. That's it's like, yeah, it was great. So
yeah,
we went out. Went out, did some things. Got to have some food I wouldn't ordinarily get to have, and just mainly, I do enjoy traveling. And
I'll tell you, that picture you posted of that avocado toast looked really good.
So that was just down the street, like 2 blocks down. They had this market, and we went there for breakfast, and somebody had recommended the avocado toast, and so I ordered it. And when it came out, it's just all good fats. I mean, it was drizzled in olive oil. It is just so much. And then I tried. They did a biscuits and gravy with it that was in a tomato-based sauce, which I'd never had before.
Yeah, that's weird. Never heard of that, but that I would try it.
Yeah, me neither. Mm-hmm. And you think that it wasn't going to have a meat taste. You're like, oh, this is some veggie dish, right?
Yeah.
And their biscuits, by the way, were they were dense. All their bread was just dense, but not dry. And the first taste of it, I was expecting tomato sauce, but it wasn't. It tasted like meat, because it was like a meat sauce, but it was tomatoes.
Sauce. Yeah.
And it was, and then I had their challah French toast, and it was more on the savory side than sweet. It had berries on it and sour cream, and it was just such a treat to have something like this is like just a neighborhood. It's not particularly fancy. Like most of the houses had yards that needed work. It's like they were not manicured lawns, anything like that. But there's this great little, spot there, and it was the grocery store that went with it was, a place where you can get good bulk foods, organic food, that kind of stuff, that kind of a market. So
cool.
That was really great. Yeah. To me, I love those experiences. It's like when I listen to anybody, it's like when, Brian, you and Tony talk about going places, beer festival. You're talking about new experiences. You look, how did we, what did I experience different, and just with anybody, and that's one of the reasons I like to do these trips, is to have something to come home and go, yeah, that was cool.
Right.
But I don't feel that, this is my vacation. I don't feel the need to I have to go to the river. I have to go hike somewhere. I have to go find some hot springs. It's like, no, I'm not into that. This is my time off.
But you still got experiences, like you said, because you went and got foods that you wouldn't get or couldn't get, however you want to word it.
Yeah.
So it's, and that is really what it is, like when we go to stuff, or I know when Tony and Jeannie do it, that's why they do things the way they do, is you go try stuff you've never tried before to, because it's like, well, we can get some of the same stuff here, but, it's different because it's made with whatever there, or it's local, or, whatever it ends up being, whatever their gimmick is,
Yeah. That sounds cool. And I wanted to say I've been enjoying the Jen alter ego on Twitter.
My little tits with the tits.
It's because I typically, Twitter's pretty much exclusively for podcasts with me, and which means mainly interacting with other podcasters. And so it's typically humor, it's jokes, it's things like that. And my Facebook is where I don't do any politics on Twitter. I just leave that for my Facebook page.
Right.
And so Facebook and Instagram now tied together. That's that's photos and photos of food, photos of the pets, that kind of stuff. Yep. But Twitter is something where I don't really do. Like I said, it's very focused, and so to kind of goof off and do something different. But I'm like, man, I need my own persona, Huts with D's nuts or something. I was like, what can I have with D something?
I kind of like that. That's
Yeah. It's like we should check and see if it's taken.
Yeah, right.
It was fun. I definitely enjoy it for sure. I'm glad you're enjoying it as well.
Well, because it's fun to just kind of, when you were talking about it on the podcast last week, it just reminded me of being a stage performer or being something where it's like, it's fun to take on a persona every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun to do that. It's enjoyable. And, you know, for me, like one of the reasons I like traveling or things like that or going and visiting people is I don't have to be me for this period of time.
Mm-hmm.
I can really be anybody I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. And it's not about like hiding something or lying about something. It's having a sense of freedom that I may not ordinarily show or exist in. Because I am a rather regimented human. I tend to be very routine. And it's nice to leave the routine every once in a while.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yeah, mom has a little bit of a problem with it, but that's okay. Mom's learning. She's accepting me for who I am.
That was like, you know, telling my mom, I'm in an open relationship.
I'm sure that's
interesting conversation.
Yeah.
She asked me a lot of questions.
I'm sure
that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
There was tons of acceptance.
At least she didn't just like slap you across the face and, you know, or like yell you're dead to me and walk out of the room. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's why I was like, you know, I don't share that part of my life on here, you know, or I don't really, none of my podcasts, I will share it if I'm on a personal podcast where somebody is, where it's more like a kind of an interview format, like who are you, what's interesting about you kind of a thing. That's where I've opened up about it. So when Jen, you started talking about doing a more adult-related podcast, I'm like, sweet, I think I can go in there and talk about some stuff I don't talk about.
Absolutely. You're more than welcome to. I'd love to have you.
Mm.
So there's me in a nutshell. In these nutshells.
These nutshells. I love it. Well, I guess I'll go next because I'll give everybody kind of an update. So I did drop my first podcast, or first show of the new podcast, which was a lot of fun. And it's neat because Nate, my co-host, is brand new to podcasting, so I get to kind of bring him along with me on my fun journey, and it's really reinvigorating myself with the medium because he's so excited by everything and the newness of it for him, and it's something he's been wanting to do for so long that it's just brought a new joy to me about recording and everything. So that's really been cool to kind of see that unfolding and happening. So that's some positive stuff. I struggled a little bit, unfortunately. For the first time at the new job, I shed a tear. I actually cried at work again, which sucks. Hate it. But somebody got me that mad and that upset and that frustrated that I broke down and cried. And it sucks because it's one of those things that I struggle because my head goes through two different places on it. One, dang it, everyone's going to see you as being weak. Mm-hmm. And then the other half of my brain's like, no, everyone's going to see you as being strong enough to own your emotions. And, you know, and if they don't see it that way, that's on them, that's not on you.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, and I struggle with that, and I'm like, no, and I have to keep reframing my thought process, and just keep reframing it, and it's like, no, I'm not going to feel bad, I'm not going to apologize, I'm not going to, do any of that, and back away from it. I'm going to own it, because it's who I am, I'm a tender heart, and that's a positive thing, that's not a negative thing, and anyone that sees it as a negative, that's on them. That's their fault. That's their problem. And I can't change who I am. I have to accept myself 100% who I am. You know, and unfortunately, it was just a really rough night, and this person just kept hammering me and hammering me and hammering me, and, you know, it was just it was not a good situation to be in, and I've taken steps to try to avoid being in that situation again.
Good.
Don't know if that's ever going to happen, but I have done my due diligence to make sure that doesn't happen again.
That was going to be my follow-up to you saying this, is Henno's done with us and stuff before. It's, like, okay, well, what's your action,
And then my action plan was, I initially thought, like, well, I'm going straight to HR with this. And then I thought about it, I'm like, nope, here's what I'm going to do. I sat back and I let it marinate. I kind of utilized the grapevine a bit, the gossip line a bit, and kind of let it out there that I was thinking about going to HR. Kind of threw a few little things out there in the universe. Mm. The next night, things calmed down. Things were much, much better. I'm like, okay. I was getting emails instead of someone coming to my desk, which I'm perfectly good with.
Much easier to deal with because you don't feel as assaulted.
Yes.
Because a lot, when people come to your desk, they're generally standing, which is a power move, I mean, you can meet it. Someone comes to you like that, just stand up. That way it takes that power away from them. But it is a power move, know.
So that it kind of took care of itself, but I did let my manager know, my boss's boss. I went and I talked to him and I said, just so you know, this happened the other night, and he didn't really, he's like, whatever, and kind of blew it off. I said, no, this will not happen again. I said, I will not be in this situation again. If I find myself in this situation again, I am going to HR, and I will make a big stink about this, because that is appropriate, and I will not be treated that way.
Yeah.
Period. I don't care who it is.
That's right.
And he just kind of looked at me, and I don't think he expected that. But that's where I'm at with it, and I'm finally at that place in my life where I can start saying those things and defending myself and supporting myself and saying, you know what? This is the line. You crossed it. This is my line. Yep. Doesn't have to be everyone's line. I don't care if you want to talk to other people that way. That's fine, whatever. But no, this is my line, and you don't cross.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. I don't accept that behavior. And at one point, something was thrown, a phone actually was thrown across the warehouse, which, not by me, but by somebody else on the shift. And I won't be in that type of environment.
No. Yeah, no, that's one thing I've just kind of learned, even for myself, is there are certain things that aren't acceptable. Mm-hmm. That is never acceptable.
Nope.
Just the action alone is an assault.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who it's directed. It's directed at nobody. It's a physical reaction.
Yeah.
And it really shows someone who has no control over themselves. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's justified. Mm-hmm. And hey, it takes two to tango, and we get into fights and stuff with our loved ones and our significant others. Sometimes things happen that we don't want to have happen. Work environment, totally different deal.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's really what it came down to. So I set the precedent. I said exactly what I wanted to say and what I needed to say, and marked them past it. And it's interesting because there's been a lot of interest already, which I hate to even think about changing jobs so quickly, but there's been a lot of interest in my resume because it's a workers market, not a employer's market. It's an employee's market. Mm-hmm. So,
which definitely feeds into you being able to be that way, firmly draw your lines, because most people will put a line there, but they won't be firm about it because, they need the job. Like what am I going to do without the job? Once that's out the window, man, is that freeing. When you can start walking up to somebody and just going, no, you're not doing this to me. I'm not allowing you to do this to me. And if you do, fine, I'll leave. I don't care. It's a great feeling. It's probably too much power for a person to wield all the time because you can go the other way and become a jerk about it,
Yeah, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of, and I am in a very blessed position where I do have a lot of power, shall we say, in my life. Mm-hmm. So I am very, very blessed situation. So, and that's good. And I have built a very nice resume over the course of my career. So it's, at this point in time, I guess it's becoming quite attractive to a lot of different people. So we'll see what happens when that goes, how that goes. I'm not actively seeking anything, but if an opportunity presents itself that is more desirable than where I'm at, then I'm going to have to follow it. I have to make the best decision for myself and my family and kind of go see how it goes.
Yep.
And then the last thing I want to put out there is my husband's having surgery on Wednesday on his wrist. So it's not...
Oh, that thing.
Yeah. So it's not like a bad surgery, but he's having surgery on his wrist. So for the audience and everybody out there, whatever your thought processes, belief systems, all that good jazz, just could send good vibes my way. I appreciate it because we're going to be spending quite a few hours at the hospital and going through a lot of just red tape and fun stuff. And it's always a good time, isn't it, going through surgeries? But, So, and then my mother-in-law is coming to town on Tuesday night, or tomorrow night. I think it's Monday night. So tomorrow night, my mother-in-law is coming to stay with us for at least one night, if not 2 nights. So, which I love my mother-in-law. I just have to get the house mother-in-law ready. Understand what that means? My house is not parent ready yet, so I will probably be spending the evening getting my house parent ready. So,
fair enough.
But my win for the week by far is accepting myself for who I am and standing up for myself for what I believe in.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
I'm pretty proud how that turned out.
Yep. It is. It's so hard for so many people to do. They just keep eating it at work because, a lot of people, the employer holds the ultimate power, which is you need this job, So that's why, they can use all sorts of tactics to abuse you in that environment. And like I said, when you're able to turn those tables or even just say, you know what, I don't care that you have this power. I'm not taking this. You tend to get, you'll get treated differently, but, at least you can go, you know what, I stood up for myself. I don't, like I'll never forget when that manager of mine said, or that district manager of mine, after all of the stuff I had done for them and ran a store and all this other stuff and, worked 60 hours a week for the place. And then I asked for a promotion or a raise and got told no. And like, well, there's this. And it's like, well, hopefully we'll see a different Brian. Well, they definitely saw a different Brian.
Yeah, you did.
Because right then at that moment in my head, I went, I don't need this. And from that point on, if I didn't want to do something, and then, like I said, I wasn't like, I just didn't ignore everything, but it was still, there were just things that I was like, no, like I'm not, oh, hey, we need you to come in. Nope. Like I'm not killing myself for you anymore.
Changed.
Yep. You're getting a different Brian. Before I was the mule you could ride into the ground. Now I'm busy on the weekend, That's what happens. Like I said, that switch flipped in my head, and once it flipped, I was like, but I also at the same time knew that it was not going to be long before, like in my head, I was like, I'm going to have to leave. Like I have to get out of here, So there was that change in mindset also. So, yeah. But,
my timeline is early next year. So unless something really spectacular comes before then, early next year is when I'm going to probably start hitting the ground running a little harder than I have been.
Yeah.
Just to kind of, I think it was important for me to have this experience that I had for sure, and what I'm having right now. I think it's been a huge learning experience. But I don't think this is something that I'm going to be able to sustain for a long term. The work in the nights, working the 60-hour weeks, it's just about a year of it, I think, is about my limit of what I'm going to be able to do and keep my balance.
That's asking too much of anybody. I don't care what your job is. I mean, unless they're paying you disgusting money, and even then, asking that of somebody consistently it's just too much, you know. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad you stood for yourself on this stuff, because that's a big step for anybody.
So how are you, Brian? What's going on with you?
Well, I had a fun week. If you listen to Salty Language, you can probably fast forward for the next 10 or so minutes. But I told you guys I had an MRI scheduled, and I went in for it, and excuse me. I no more. Like, I looked at the machine, and, I've had them before on my knees. And, when you're going in, like, feet first, it's like, whatever, who cares? Because they only went up to, like, my thighs to, MRI my knees or whatever. Or they went to my waist, something like that. They didn't go, I wasn't fully in there. So, I get on the board, they, go through all the prep stuff. Here's the emergency button thing if you need it, and here's the earbuds, and we'll talk to you through those. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Then they come out of nowhere with this, like, football helmet thing and put it over my head. Like, put it across my face, basically. And I'm sure if you, Google MRI mask or helmet or something like that, it'll come up. And I'm like, this is not comfortable, because it basically was like if you just went like, someone was just, like I was telling Tony on Salty Language, it felt like someone had their hand like 2 inches or so from my face. And I'm sitting there going, this is going to be an hour of this. And I'm like, okay, so I start breathing. I try to go through breathing exercises because I can feel myself getting a little anxious, but I'm fine. And then she's like, okay, well, we're going to, put you into the machine now. I'm like, okay. They no more and did. And the woman goes, well, we're about to start. And I immediately was like, get me out of here. And she pulled me back out of the thing. And I was like, I went into like full on, like I was short of breath. I felt nauseous. I was seriously in full on fight or flight mode. I was in an anxiety or a panic attack. And even now, the times I've told this story now, which has been a few times, I get a little anxious thinking about it. That's how anxious it made me. I don't think I've ever been that anxious. And, like when I sat up, they had me sit there for a couple minutes because the woman said I did not look good, which I'm sure I didn't, because basically all I wanted to do was, scurry away like I was a raccoon when you shine a light on them or something, Man, it was something. And yeah, it was definitely one of the worst bouts of anxiety that I've ever had, if not the worst,
So is it one of those head cages?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those don't look really exciting.
No, they weren't. It was not. I didn't know about that. Like, I knew what the machine looked like. I knew about, that the tube is tight. And like I told Tony, me being a larger person, I was really uncomfortable inside that tube anyway, because there wasn't much room. Which, first of all, you can't move a lot anyway, so that's not that big of a deal. Once you're in, you're supposed to stay still. But, you know me, you saw it, Henno, when we were at that bar in Chicago, when I'm in like a dense, full up area, I'm like, open now, like I need to get away from that, and that's exactly what happened. Yep. And Jen seen it too. I'm very much, that's the only time in my life that I usually get that way. Otherwise I have anxiety, but it doesn't usually escalate the way it does if I'm in a really crowded, noisy area. I've definitely got a short limit, And I sat there for a minute because I was thinking about going back, giving it another try. Like, okay, I'll sit here, I'll calm down. I've been in it now, so, and I just couldn't. Just the idea of it was just way too much for me. I felt a tightness in my chest. I was, like I said, they wouldn't let me get up until I caught my breath, which is smart, because who knows, I may have just fallen right on my face or something, you know. But when I went out to the waiting area, you know, my mom was there, and she had me sit down and wait a little bit longer because I was still very much, you know, kind of a thing.
Wow.
Yeah, so it it really freaked me out, and they mentioned to me that I could, you know, go try the open MRI, but when I was looking at pictures of it, the problem I had was the stuff was right in front of my face. The problem wasn't being open around me, you know, so I was like, I'm looking at this, and then I was reading something online, and they were talking about how in the open MRI, it's actually closer to your face. And I'm like, well, this is probably not going to work, because that's what freaked me out. And you think about it, Jen, like, you know, I've told you in the past, like, when I'm in the shower, I can't have the water, like, running across my face for very long. I can have it down there long enough to rinse my face, and then I immediately have to move back and take breaths. Because basically, I think what it is in my head, I'm, for lack of a better term, I'm drowning. You know? So, and I was feeling very similar in that, and it's just that I feel closed in. And, so I don't know, I'm gonna call my doctor and find out what he says, because, you know, saw online, and I was told that, you know, they could give you something like, Ativan or something to, you know, try to help. Or there's an option of that you could be put under for it. And it's like, if they can put me under and guarantee that I'm not going to wake up at some point, you know, during the the exam, that wouldn't bother me. I'd be okay with that. You know, because, you know, obviously I can't worry about it when I'm out.
Yeah.
So, but from what I've read, insurance companies don't like to pay for that, from what I've read. Because they don't want to pay an anesthesiologist.
Because you have to be monitored the whole time.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, they could do a couple shots of whiskey.
Yeah. Tony said that too, actually. He didn't say whiskey, but yeah, he didn't say whiskey, but he said beers. But man, that was, like I said, that was one of the worst experiences I've ever had. So if anyone's listening and you're claustrophobic and you're scheduled for an MRI, you might want to talk to your doctor first. You know, see if they can. I told Tony though too, I was like, Xanax wouldn't have helped me. I would have had to take multiples probably, and even then I don't know if it would have helped, you know. So, because it barely got me through a dental exam one time, you know, and this was way worse than that was, you know. So I don't know. We'll see though. If not, I guess I just don't have one. You know, if that's just the way it is, that's just the way it is. You know, I still have an EEG coming up, which that I'm not afraid of, because that's just they slap electrodes on your head and you have to sit there and whatever, you know. I've never had one, but when I looked at how they're done, I was like, oh, this is basically I have to just go sit for an hour, you know, and do, like, move a little bit to adjust or whatever. So, and, to add to my my anxiety week, our power went out the other night. A couple nights ago, our power just went out at like 11:30 at night, and for some reason, like, it was around here, it affected like 150 or so people, and it wasn't bad at first because I was like, you know what? I've got comic books on my iPad, which was fully charged. I've got my phone, which had a good charge on it. You know, like, you know, it was dark, but, you know, my laptop had a almost full charge too. So I was like, okay, you know, I've got things to distract me during this time. And the thing is, otherwise, what happens is, since I'm in complete dark like that, if I'm wide awake like that, I start getting claustrophobic. Because it's all black. You know? And, So I was worried about that at first. But, then I look at the outage map thing online, and it said that they would have it fixed by 2. And I was like, oh, okay, that's only a couple hours. I'll stay here and read some comics, or start reading a book that I have on my iPad, whatever, and I'll be fine. And, I can get it on my phone and goof around, because if I need to charge, I can always, go out to the car and plug it in. You guys still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Whew, sorry.
Yeah,
Skype
froze.
Yeah, Skype froze up here, so that's why I was wondering. Anyway, so, I was fine for a while, and then what honestly got to me wasn't the dark, it was the quiet.
You so the humming and the different sounds.
Well, I sleep with a fan on me, first of all, to keep me cool, but also for white noise. And I'm laying there in bed, and I'm like, man, I don't want to pull up stuff on my phone because, I want to keep the charge on it in case we need to call something or somebody, at that point, because I was trying to go to sleep. And it was just, the quiet was, at one point, I was just like, I pulled up a couple songs on my phone just to break the silence. It was deafening, it really was making me, that's where I started getting anxious, which is so weird, because you think, most people, quiet is calm, and it is for me most of the time too, but it was like, this is too much. So, yeah. And my anxiety got up a little bit because they kept pushing the time back, And
I hate it when you do that.
Well, and a lot of it with me is I still have anxiety from when I lived at the house, to where when our power would go out, our sump pump would stop working, so our basement would flood if it was raining or something. So when power goes out, I immediately get anxious because of that. Otherwise, I could get through it probably, but that really bothers me even still. And it's been years since I've lived in the house. So, yeah. So that was most of my week. So,
a fun little adventure.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, I had therapy last week. I don't have it again for a month or something, It would have been nice if it was after the MRI, but
yeah.
I'm sure if I called, I could probably get something worked out, but it was, I'm okay now. It did take me a long time to calm down from that MRI, though. I mean, hours later, I was still tense.
Wow.
Yeah. And like I said, even now as I'm telling the story again, I start kind of tensing up from it. So, yeah. MRIs, do not recommend.
So, I'm looking at the article that we have for this week, and I don't know why, but it seems vaguely familiar to me. So, we might be doing a repeat of some information that we've given before, but I think it's important information, and I think it's a good article anyway. So, we're going to go through it here. So, 15 behaviors we don't always recognize as self-harm. Got this article from Huffington Post, the mental health area on their website. And according to the article, we wanted to know what behaviors people engaged in that they realized were actually self-harm. So we turned to our mighty community to share their experiences. Below is what they shared. It is important to remember that not all of the behaviors listed are automatically self-harm. For example, avoiding going to the doctor may be the result of a struggle with anxiety, not actual self-harm. Often what makes a behavior self-destructive is the harmful thought process behind the behavior. It's kind of something to keep in mind as we're going through this. Self-harm is... Self-harm isn't always about causing physical pain. It's continually tugging at that thread that will cause you to unravel. Sadly, what can start as a fairly innocuous behavior can lead to more serious harm or even attempts at suicide. So when you're dealing with self-harm, it's more along the lines of, that stove is hot, I'm going to touch to see what it feels like. Ouch, that hurts. let me get a touch it again because maybe that, that kind of felt a little bit good too. Ouch, that hurts. And you keep going back. So it's causing yourself maybe not physical pain, but emotional pain by keep doing the exact same things over and over again. So keeping that in mind, the first thing on the list is overspending. Spending money, I don't mean to. Actually, when I'm not depressed, I'm very frugal. But when my depression kicks in, I always buy things. A lot of it has to do with self-imaging, too. I think I have to have, if I have nice things, I will feel better about myself. Then there's that part of me that just wants to fill that void. This is so harmful because erratic spending makes me feel worse when I realize I, quote-unquote, wasted the money. Then I descend into the cycle all over again.
You know what? That's funny. I've done retail therapy plenty of times in my life. I've never felt like I feel buyer's remorse, I guess, but I've never so much looked at it as though I wasted the money. I'm usually more like, wow, I really shouldn't have spent that money. Like, I have it, I could use it now, and, but not enough that I'll take something back that I bought.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of finding that with everything in life, it is all about balance, and sometimes everybody goes a little bit crazy with the spending and stuff. But if you find yourself doing it to I guess the best words on here are fill a void. Mm-hmm. So if you are using it as a replacement to something else, such as a relationship with another person, or to make yourself feel good when you're not feeling good, because spending always makes you feel good regardless, usually. But yeah, so that's the stuff to be aware of.
You see a lot of that on hoarders. Like when they really start getting to the heart of it, well, a lot of times people are replacing a lost loved one or a relationship with just stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next one is isolating yourself. Actively isolating. I stay at home all the time, even when I know it would be good for me to get out and do something. My health issues make me feel like nobody would want to accommodate me if I wanted to go somewhere, so all I ever do is grocery shopping and go home. I'm alone or with my kids at all times. Yeah, that can be very harmful. Mm-hmm. As we've discussed on here before, isolating is very comforting for a lot of things, including mental illness. Or if you have mental illness, isolating is almost a necessity sometimes. But too much isolating can really, really set you back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really is I think isolating is one of those things that is easy to justify,
mm-hmm.
which makes it why it's something that's harmful even though you don't think it is, or because it is so easy to come up with rationalizations for isolation.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
I mean, and then my favorite one for a reason for isolating is, we've all done it, my stomach hurts. Because it does. It's like if you don't want to do something and you know you should do it, it does make your stomach hurt. Mm-hmm. So it's really easy to say, oh, my stomach hurts, I better stay in. Mm-hmm. I'm not feeling all that well.
Yep.
Easy peasy doosy. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So, just, something to keep in mind. Having more casual sex than usual. So, convincing myself that my hypersexuality is actually just me being in control of my own body and embracing who I am, when sometimes it's a negative coping skill and leaves me empty and lonely and feeling unfulfilled. That's a pretty dangerous one that I think a lot of people fall into. So, just be aware. Casual sex, nothing really wrong with that. Hey, you make your own choices in life, I'm not going to judge. But the big but there is, if you're doing it to fill that void, as we talked about earlier, then maybe you need to really stop and think what the void is. And yes, I kind of made a little innuendo there, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
My bad. Sorry, folks. But if you are doing it to take the place of something else in your life, really just make sure that you're kind of in touch with yourself. And there you go. Another She said touch.
Yeah.
All right. So, anywho, you get my point, folks.
I think the thing that, like, the two things, the retail therapy kind of thing and the sex thing both have serious. You have negatives there, right?
Mm.
Sure.
Right. There's this remorse afterwards, or a letdown, or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
which is like, okay, if you're not realizing that, then you're ignoring some red flags with the behavior.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. Really, the remorse is kind of the red flag, if nothing else.
Yeah. If you're doing something that leaves you feeling some sort of remorse, then
Well, even the isolation one. If later that night you look on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and it's like, oh man, look at all the fun they had. I should have went.
Mm-hmm.
There you have it.
Yep.
Absolutely. Now, next one is allowing toxic people into your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've that. Be very judicious about who you let into your life and who is a part of your support system, because you want the people to be there to help support you and build you up and make you stronger, not kick the cards out from your card house.
Mm-hmm.
If they're doing self-destructive things, or if they're encouraging you or allowing you to do self-destructive things without trying to help you, you don't need them in your life.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're better off being alone than with the wrong people.
I can give a great example of this, which is, and it's using you, Jen, which is once you got on medication, I remember you being, people telling you, I miss the old Jen, or fun Jen. And it's like, no, that Jen was not good for herself, like that was self-destructive behavior, and it's like, that's the kind of thing to me that it's like, whoa, time out, and it's like, I know what they, we both knew what they meant. They mean they want you to have fun, but they're not thinking about the reasons that, being unmedicated with bipolar, maybe drinking too much or being manic. Yeah, these are not good things,
On surface, they seem okay.
Yeah.
Just these behaviors, and a lot of this, I can really relate to this article, because a lot of this has been my life.
Mm-hmm.
I have done a lot of these things. So it's, so when I look at them, I'm like, yeah, it is a way of self-harm, but it is, a lot of these are symptoms of bipolar and other mental illnesses. So it's just, I think, Hannah, you said it best. It's like, if you're feeling remorse or you're feeling negative about these actions that you're taking in your life, those are the red flags that you need to pay attention to and say, whoa, if I'm not liking the decisions I'm making, then something needs to change.
Yeah. And this actually kind of goes back to our, what were they called? Safety behaviors from a few weeks ago. It's very similar in that too, even though they feel like coping mechanisms, they aren't. Or they can be, but, when you get into this other, like if you're feeling kind of low about your self-esteem and you go buy a new outfit or something and that makes you feel better, a lot of people be like, whatever, you deserve it. If you go out and buy like a whole new wardrobe and, like then it might be like, whoa, hey, don't mortgage your house for some clothes. But, these things can all, just like we've talked in the past about, it's one of those things where something good can turn bad really quickly.
Yeah, and that's the thing with having people around that are, could be toxic.
Yeah.
A lot of times we bring those people into our lives out of a sense of altruism.
Yeah.
Like this person needs something, or they're going through a hard time, or they're blah, 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 this or that, or whatever. And all we're doing is just putting, we're volunteering for the experience, because we're trying to, even though the red flags are there, you're telling yourself, oh, well, this person needs somebody. Or they, and so again, there's that, it's easy to, there's justification in there, right away. If somebody says, oh, really, you sure you want to have that person around, because, and if, as soon as there's that justification, and I think it's a good indicator that maybe you're not looking at things from a rational, viewpoint.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good point.
Well, yeah, very. The next one is put yourself in risky situations. So, generally, risky behavior, such as going out by myself during the night in a bad neighborhood and placing myself in a position where I feel anxious. You know, pushing those limits. And those that have known me during mania have known me to put myself into some very, very risky situations. Mm-hmm. You know, I've really flirted with fate many times, and I've been very fortunate that nothing bad has happened. Mm-hmm. You know, I won't go into details because details aren't necessary, but it's definitely thankful. So just be very, very, very careful, folks. I mean, it's one thing to be a daredevil, and it's, you know, and with all of extreme sports and all of the great stuff that's out there right now. Enjoy yourself. But if you find yourself consistently putting yourself in risky situations and either getting harmed or getting close to being harmed, and you feel bad about it, you feel guilty for putting yourself in those situations, that's the key. You know, you gotta start thinking about decisions that you're making, and maybe it's time to get somebody else's opinion on what's going on. Mm-hmm. So, let's see. Watching things to make yourself feel worse on purpose. Mm-hmm. So, there you go. I mean, sometimes it's that feeding the beast, you know? Mm-hmm. You know, a pint of ice cream and sitting in front of the TV and watching something that's going to make you cry can be very therapeutic. Very therapeutic. Some nights we all just need to sit and chill and just wallow in self-pity for a little bit.
It's like listening to sad songs when you're sad, you know? It's just, most people be like, oh, come on, you gotta listen to something upbeat to break the mood. You know? Yeah.
But sometimes you just need to have that moment, and that's fine, have the moment. But if you're consistently doing this to yourself, that's never good. Alright. Next one is scratching.
Yeah.
You know, this really is very close to the textbook definition of self-harm.
Yes.
Something as simple as a simple scratch, you know, like, hey, I itch, you know, scratch. If you itch and you scratch it till you bleed, that can be a problem.
Yeah.
If you scratch yourself so hard that you leave scars, that is a problem. That is not as simple, I have a mosquito bite, I just need to scratch. Mm-hmm. So,
and there's other behaviors like that too, like, you know, biting your nails all the way back or something, you know, like way down, and, you know, different behaviors like that too, that's you just can't help yourself but to do, or picking at stuff, you know, like scabs or something like that, or, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Anything that causes you physical pain, you should not be doing repetitive behaviors that cause you physical pain. You just should. It's just never a good thing. So, if you find yourself doing anything that causes you physical pain on a consistent basis, please seek help, because something is not going right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you don't want it to get worse.
Exactly.
You don't want it to escalate or something. So, yeah.
And a lot of these things do. If left unchecked, a lot of these behaviors will escalate, and it's almost like chasing a high. The first time you do something, you feel really elated by it. You know, you're like, hey, I cheated death. Woohoo! You know, it makes you feel amazing. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can do anything. And then from that point on, you're chasing that high. Mm-hmm. So,
or low.
You know, or low. So, just be careful. Next one is sabotaging important relationships. Yeah. I mean, there you go. Excessive use of alcohol, drugs, or food. Mm-hmm. You know, and manipulation of food is on here as well. So eating too much, not eating enough. So borderline the bulimia and anorexia territories and things. Just next one is punishing yourself by not dressing for the weather.
That's interesting.
I've never heard that one. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I never would have thought that one, but, you know, again, it's something to make you physically uncomfortable, and it's putting your body or yourself in a state of anxiety or uncomfortableness for the sake of doing it.
Yep.
You know? It's one thing if you're doing it because, whatever, you know, on a whim, you don't dress appropriately, or, you know, you think it's going to be hot, so you wear shorts, and it's actually cold outside.
Right.
Whatever. You misjudge. Or sometimes you just think you're going to you just look really cute, and you just don't want to wear the right shoes.
Right.
I don't know anyone who does that.
Yeah, I don't either.
Who would ever dream of not wearing the appropriate shoes for the occasion?
Right.
I don't know. It ends up with very sore feet.
Right.
But that being said, you know, it's anything with extremes. Mm-hmm. And then the last one here is over-exercising, which I think we've heard before.
Yep.
Overtraining.
Yeah.
Just because you're doing something that's healthy for you doesn't mean that you can't overdo it.
Yeah.
And it has become an issue.
Yeah.
As I've mentioned before, I think it all kind of goes back to what my doctor initially told me when we were first talking about my diagnosis, which is if you are not living the life that you want to live and you find yourself unable to do the things you want to do, you need to address what's standing in your way.
Yeah.
So if it's anxieties, if it's these behaviors, if it's self-harm, whatever it is, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is that's standing in your way for being the person you want to be and living the life you want to live, now's the time to take the steps to get those obstacles out of your way so that you can be the person you need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that overtraining one, I see that a lot.
Oh, I bet. Mm-hmm.
Where you're at, sure.
Yeah, and
or even with the food thing too, like over dieting. You know, like people go just completely off the rails with these diets sometimes, and it's like, you know, to where they act like the world's going to end if they eat a piece of cheese or something. You're like, just eat the cheese, it's okay, you know?
Yeah. That's right. I think a lot of these are a lot of them are behaviors that if we have really good friends around us, you know, really good, you know, tribe or team or whatever you want to call them, that we have, you know, given them permission to call us out on these things.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, like I've said before many times, you know, it's like, it's not always easy for friends to call you on it because they're afraid of what the reaction's going to be.
Yeah. So,
you know, if you are going through something where you might have behavioral changes, you know, definitely giving people permission to say, hey, you know, if you see anything that's just unusual, or if I'm not, you know, doing something out of character, please let me know.
Yeah. Like, some of it's easy, like you were saying, like the scratching, and if I'm sitting in a room with somebody and they're just digging the hell out of their arm, I'm going to be like, you know, ask what's going on, because, you know, is it a mosquito bite? Is it something, or, you know, if they're like, oh, I don't, like, if they're just like, oh, I didn't even realize I was doing it or something, and it's like, you know, this can be a concerning thing. You know, some of it's easy because you see it, and some of it isn't because, you know, like Jen said about the isolation, you know, it's super easy to, oh, my you know, my stomach's bothering me, and even if it's true, you know, at some point you kind of wonder, like, because I've gone through this. Like, I get anxious, my stomach gets upset, and then I'm like, I'm not leaving the house because I don't want, you know, problems. And, you know, it gets to a point that almost every time you're supposed to do something, it's like your body automatically, like, you start getting anxious and then your stomach's upset. So it almost, you know, it just starts writing itself as time goes on, you know, to where you don't even want or nervous about something, but all of a sudden, you know, actually Jen knows that with me. Like, for a long time I would, because my anxiety would be so high I couldn't go do stuff. But then when it got to a point that I'm like, nope, like, I'm really excited. I want to do this. And, you know, couldn't do it, you know, so those certain people will see, but also may not see, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But if you see somebody, a friend of yours doing this, you know, I mean, the best thing you can do is disregard the potential ramifications, you know, to you, and just ask if they're doing okay, or, you know, don't be a jerk about it, you know. You know, like if you see somebody changing the way that they're eating, you know, to where they're eating more or less or something, you know, just be delicate with some of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, what do you think, guys? Think we're good?
Good list.
All right. Awesome. I agree. It's a good list of kind of some reminders to kind of just keep an eye on ourselves.
Yeah.
With that, folks, you know the drill. You want to continue the conversation with us? You can reach us at our website at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. You can reach us via email at thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com. You can reach me on Twitter at Jen's Crazy Life. That's Jen with a G, Crazy Life. Or you can reach me at my other account, which is Dits, WITDTITS. And hey, you, Hanno, how can they reach you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ida Henno and on Facebook at Henno Hiker. Oh, and thanks for the Orville Light shout out last week, Jen.
Heck yeah. Great show. Not wait to listen to the podcast. All right. You, Ryan, how are you?
You can also find the show on Twitter at The Crazy Life Pod, where I post when new episodes go up. You can find us over on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/Crazy Life Podcast. You know, please go join our group. We don't have very many people, and we're lonely. No, you can find me on Twitter at Stunami. You can find my other podcast, Salty Language, at salty_language on Twitter, or at saltylanguage.com. That show is not safe for work, so be careful where you listen to it. We are part of the Tangent-Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. So please go check out the other shows on the network. You may find something else that you really like. If you're using Apple Podcasts, please rate, review, and subscribe. If you haven't already, I see we've gotten a couple more. Thank you to those who have left us reviews. Those help us move up in, visibility in searches and stuff on iTunes. So if you haven't left a review for us, please go do so if you have the time. We would greatly appreciate it. Same goes for any other podcast app you use. If they have a review or a rating system you can use, please, do that, or use their like or share options, because some of them, that's how those work. To really help us out. Or, just please retweet the show links when we post them. Or, tell other people that you know who may get something from the show about us. If you would, we would greatly appreciate it. Forgot what I was going to say here. Oh, if you, if you're feeling as though you may harm yourself or others, as we've, said plenty of times through the episode and stuff, or some of these things, ring loudly to you, please seek help. There's all sorts of people out there willing to help. If money is an issue, go to nami.org. They're great about trying to pair people with doctors that they can afford. Or just talk to your doctor's office. I'm sure, they probably have some sort of a, social worker or something you can talk with somewhere. But yeah, please reach out if you need it. I know it's incredibly difficult. But, please do so. Also, if, as we've said here, if you see a friend going through some of this stuff, reach out to them and make sure they're doing okay, or see if there's any way you can help. Reach out to anybody that you know of, if they've gone through a recent, like a loss, like whether it's a family, a relationship, animal, whatever it is, job. But also get a hold of your friends that tell you they're fine, because there's, a lot of us that will tell people we're fine when we're not. I'm fine is probably the most overused mask in the world. So, so yeah. So please reach out to somebody. You never know, you'll make their day probably, or at least they'll know you care. And you never know, it might keep them from doing something drastic.
Absolutely. And with that, folks, stay safe, stay healthy, wiggle your toes, and enjoy your week.